Thank you everyone for joining us today. I know there's a lot going on in the community today. There's the CITRIX Converge is also happening. So for those that are in attendance, thank you. And for those that can't make it, you'll be able to see the recorded version. So I'm Omar Kechrid. I'm the VP of Business Development. I'm going to take 5 minutes just to take you through a brief overview of ZeeTim's offering. And then Prerak, my colleague, will show us how in such a simple way ZeeTim can help you manage thousands of endpoints. We want to make the session interactive, so any questions, as Stephanie mentioned, please ask. We'll try to address it, if during or after the session. If not, we can always do one-on-ones after the webinar. And James, thank you very much for being our moderator today. Hopefully things will be quite lively.
No problem. I shall jump in with questions whenever is convenient. No problem.
Excellent. So just a little bit about ZeeTim. We're a 12-year-old vendor. We have deep roots in system integration. And even before ZeeTim was founded, we were already supporting numerous customers in EUC for almost like 30 years. We have a sister company in France that does system integration. And it really allows us to keep a very close pulse to what's going on. So we build solutions around those issues that we know exist in the real world. So our products are certified CITRIX ready endpoint as well as security. And we were also recently validated for Nutanix ready frame. And we support all of the major platforms, VMware, RDS, so on and so forth. So for those of you who know ZeeTim, you'll remember that we have several tools in our arsenal, including the endpoint solution, but also we do some things around security and performance. So access, authentication, printing are areas that we also can help with, which oftentimes are related to the overall projects that we're doing in end user computing. And that's why you'll often see our hashtag, not just an endpoint. And that's because we not only provide a comprehensive endpoint solution, but also help customers improve those other areas. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is ZeeOS. So ZeeTim prides itself on our ultra secure endpoint operating system. It's called ZeeOS. And we built it mainly around security. So security is the key and the main reason we developed our own operating system. It's a Linux-based operating system, read-only, and optimized for virtual workspaces for accessing those remote apps and desktops. For ultimate security, a device that's running our operating system can be configured locally. You can't do anything if you're holding it, in front of you. And as Prerak will show, all of the configuration is done via zero touch through the management tool, which we call ZeeConf. Okay, so ZeeConf is a comprehensive management tool for managing endpoints with the ZeeOS operating system, or as we call them, any device that's running our ZeeOS, we call it a ZeeTerm. ZeeConf, the management tool, is complementary with every license or device, and it includes all the features. So we don't, when you buy the solution from us, you get everything as one package, even the gateway, or for managing devices outside of the LAN. Okay, we've worked really hard, and I hope that you'll be able to see it from today's demos that our solution is quite intuitive, pretty simple to get a gauge for, and it's also quick and snappy. Our goal is to keep things simple, allow you to master the solution as quickly as possible. So regarding the hardware, we give customers the freedom to opt for any device. However, we also have a device of our own, which we've conceived to be future-proof, supporting changing requirements, and something that you can rely on lasting for a long time. Needs change. You may be using one app today, you're using 3 in a couple of years. Graphic requirements might change. The CITRIX client might require more on the endpoint. So this is the device that we have. I don't know if you can see it in my camera. But it's a full metal device. It's got 6 USBs, a COM port. Believe it or not, the COM port comes in handy with certain peripherals. You can have 3 monitors, 2 HDMI, 1 display port. and dual LANs. So with any device, you can actually put our operating system on there. So you can opt for our hardware or go for a hardware of your choice. And the solution that you would use, again, is ZeeTransformer. So ZeeTransformer is our product, which allows you to do that transformation, to create a USB, load our operating system on there, and either boot temporarily, so you can use that USB to just boot, and then once you remove that USB, you're back to your operating system that was running before, or permanently convert that device into a ZeeTerm. So in addition to these elements which make up our endpoint offering, it's worth mentioning that ZeeTim goes beyond just providing an endpoint product. We really want to give a comprehensive edge security solution and provide any performance improvements that we can. And we do so today with these additional tools. The first is ZeeKey. It's a unique offering conceived with virtual workspaces in mind. I should have a ZeeKey here. So it's an uncopyable USB. It's got a chip on it, and it can hold the credentials for accessing the workspace along with all the apps and websites that you access. So it makes the user experience more simple. The user does not have to remember their credentials. They just come into their device, plug this in, put in a PIN code, and then they have access to everything that they need to access in the session. As soon as this is removed, the session is disconnected and they can go to another device and start again. So very convenient. It speeds up the process of logging in, and it's very helpful in certain industries where people move around from a device to the next, like retail or healthcare. We've also added a layer of security with our ZeeOTP MFA offering. This is a multi-factor authentication solution that can be placed on-prem or in the cloud, and it supports any application. So we support multiple apps via SAML or Radius to make them MFA compliant, and we have various methods of OTP delivery. So push notification, SMS, via our app, etc. Finally, and for performance enhancements, we've addressed printing, which is really a common bottleneck, even in 2021. I don't know about you, James, but we still see printing as an issue even today. So what ZPrint does is it's a solution to help compress print jobs. We can compress print jobs up to 30 times. We can virtualize drivers, so you don't have a need to install printer drivers everywhere. And we can support secure mobile printing, as well as we can remove print servers and centralize printer management. A lot of people moving to the cloud, so it's very handy to have something to centrally manage all the printers and drivers. There's a lot of scenarios that we could go through with ZPrint. So if you have a specific scenario, definitely reach out. We can see if we can help. ZPrint was actually one of our first solutions that we developed as a company. So as you can see, ZeeTim is one vendor which you can count on for multiple needs, and we'll continue to innovate and provide as much value as possible. We have other things, other ideas, other solutions, other areas or other gaps that we want to fill, and this is things that we want to bring down the pipe. So I think keep posted on that. But I just want to highlight that we can be a one-stop shop for organizations looking to optimize their virtual workspace investments by having the necessary tools to secure the environment, simplify management, and also ensure a good user experience. So you can rely on ZeeTim from multiple fronts. So the last thing before I hand it over to Prerak, I just want to encourage everyone, if you like what you see in the webinar, we do offer 10 free licenses of ZeeTransformer. I believe there will be a link there. This is a full-fledged, yours to keep licenses with our management tool and everything, we're going to talk about today. So definitely take advantage of that if you want to start exploring, if you have devices around that you can repurpose into, into thin clients. So
are they completely fully featured? Are they, Omar? Sorry.
Absolutely. So these are, you'll get 10 concurrent licenses. So we license by concurrent device. So just connect with us. There's a few elements that, Prerak will go through the architecture and show everyone like what are the elements to put in place. And then from the license server, you'll be able to request licenses, and then we can provide you those licenses once you make the request. And we're happy to show you how to do it, how to put it in place. So anyone that's looking to explore, this, please do connect with us. And one interesting fact is that most people that we talk to, they're still using Windows endpoints. So we still haven't seen like a huge movement toward Linux-based thin clients. A lot of people have bad experiences because of just the way that certain operating systems work or certain peripherals not being supported by certain vendors. But this is our specialty. So what I tell people is just give it another shot. There are specialists, or software-focused endpoint companies that really know their stuff that may be able to help out. I mean, we've seen a lot of scenarios where a driver was or a certain peripheral, for instance, was a blocking point, and we're able to sort that out and get it working with CITRIX and give a smooth experience. So before I hand it to Prerak, actually, Stephanie, is it possible to go through the poll? There's only 3 questions that we prepared. Maybe we can ask these questions and just, it'll give us a feel for who's on the call today and what they're working with in their environment.
Sure. So I have the first one out now, and I did put that link in the chat for you guys to the trial. And I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Wow, a lot of you are hybrid. All right, I'll share this real quick so you can see.
Nice. Yeah, I would have expected it by now, that most people would be going hybrid.
I'm curious about this one too. And if you have other, you can put it in the chat. You can put what you're, if it's not one of these. So far there's 0 other though.
Okay, good.
All right, I think, see, Omar, before I share it, can you guess the 2, like the
two top ones?
Yeah.
Definitely Windows, at the top, but the second, maybe there are some guys here with Linux.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty standard. That's pretty much what we see when we're talking to customers and prospects.
And one last question for everyone. Here it comes. There you go.
This one is very interesting to us because we focus on these 3 things. This is like our 3 pillars whenever we're bringing out a new product. But I'm always curious, I think I have an idea of what I think sells the most, what allows people to convince management. But let's see what everybody says first.
All right, I'll close it out now and share. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess this, at least the group that we have today, shows me something different. I would have thought security is the top thing, but maybe it depends how you're looking at it also. Like, is it from a personal standpoint as an administrator, or for the organization itself? What was your answer, if you don't mind, James?
Well, I'm always most concerned about end user experience and security, and balancing out those 2 is basically what my life consists of, trying to make user experience good. And then when the security teams come along and tell me all the things I now need to change to make it secure, it's trying to sort of offset that to the users.
Cool, very good. So I guess we're done with the presentation piece. So let's dive into what everybody has been waiting for. So Prerak, I guess the floor is yours.
Perfect. So once again, thank you, Stephanie and James, for being with us today on the webinar. And also thanks, Omar, for giving us a very brief overview of what different products ZeeTim has to offer in the encrypting domain, apart from the endpoint piece. So for the demo part, we'll try to focus mainly on the endpoint and the management tool. We'll have a look at a very short and brief demo of the management tool as well. So before I start with, I'll quickly go through the different things that we'll see during this part. So first of all, we'll have a look how you could easily convert a device into a device running ZeeOS using our tool ZeeTransformer. So there's a very short video of a couple of minutes that will show you how it's done, and it's a very simple process. After that, we'll have a look at the architecture of the solution. So what different components are involved, what role they play inside the subsystem. And lastly, we'll have a look at the management tool. So there are two parts in the management tool. So we'll have a look at both of those parts. So yeah, before I go to the video, a very quick reminder of different terms that you might already have heard, and you'll also hear during the demo and my presentation as well. So just to give you guys a very brief idea, ZeeOS is an operating system that's been developed by ZeeTim. Okay, it's a Linux-based operating system, and all our devices run ZeeOS. ZeeTim or ZeeTransformer. So the ZeeTim is the physical device that Omar showed you before, and ZeeTransformer is a tool that we use to convert any existing device, any Windows-based device that you might have. And lastly, ZeeConf is the management software. Okay, and it has two parts. So one is a Windows-based tool, and we also have a web-based console as well. We'll have a look at both of those later on. And lastly, ZeeConf also has a server component and a database component, which contains all the data related to the endpoints, and the server is mainly responsible for different communications. So yeah, let's have a quick look at how you could convert let's say a regular PC into a thin client. And it's a very easy process, a 5-minute process, and that's a 3-step process also. So the very first thing that you need to do is to go to our website. That's www.zeetim.com. In the product trial, you could easily download the ZeeTransformer package. So it's a zip. It's around 1 GB because it also contains operating system. So that's the reason it's a bit heavy. But once you've downloaded that, you just extract it at a place. And inside the zip, you have two folders, so ZeeConf and ZeeTransformer. So initially, we start with the ZeeTransformer bit. You select the USB that you will use to boot the machine that we want to convert, and just click on boot device. So this takes around few minutes. Also depends on the speed of the USB and the machine that you are using to create the USB. And once this USB is created, you just plug it into another machine and boot from the BIOS. You might need to disable secure boot in case it's enabled. Yes. So yeah, so once you boot on the USB, the system will boot with ZeeOS, and you'll have the OS on your device. And lastly, it's managing that device that we have just converted. So for that, in another folder, we also have the client, the management tool. It's a standalone exe. So you just launch it. And if the device and the client are in the same domain, it will automatically detect that system. And that's it. And you'll have a complete control of that device, and you could manage different configurations of the device that you just converted. So yeah, so like I said, it's a very easy, streamlined, and short process. Doesn't take much time, and it's quite easy to play around with our solution and see what different capabilities it has if you are just trying or testing some endpoint solutions. So now moving with the architecture bit. Okay, so we'll quickly go through the architecture of the solution before we dive into the demo. So this is a very top view of the architecture that we have. Okay, so the very first components that we see are the endpoint devices. So these devices can either be in the public network. Okay, so that are the users that are let's say working from outside, or they can be inside your enterprise network also. So those are the devices that you see in the bottom, the user LAN. Okay. And to manage those devices, like I said before, we have two management components. So the first one is ZeeConf client. So this is a Windows-based tool. Okay, so this is the one that we'll see right after the architecture. So this is a Windows-based tool that is used, that allows you to manage thousands of devices. And also one interesting thing, there is no local configuration tool on the device. So the only way that you could manage or configure these devices is through this ZeeConf client, that management tool. And like, we have chosen this approach by design in order to provide better security in the solution. And the second component for the management part is the web-based console. So that we call it ZeeConf Web Management Console, or WMC in short. So this is more targeted for the help desk people. Okay, so like once you have deployed or configured all the devices, this tool allows you to monitor those devices. It has some dashboards which allows you to get some information about the devices that are deployed right now and things like that. We'll also have a short look at this management tool, like this web-based tool, also in the very end of the presentation. Moving forward, we have the, let's say, the back end of the solution. So there are mainly two main things over there. So for the first one is the ZeeConf server service. So this acts as an orchestrator, and it is responsible for communicating across all the different components that we have. So it can be the gateway, the management tool, or even to the endpoint devices. And second one is the license server service. Okay, so this allows this is responsible for providing the license for the endpoint devices. And both of these are like standard Windows service. Okay, they can be installed on any Windows machine. So it can be a Windows 10 or any Windows OS, Windows Server OS. You do not require a dedicated hardware or a dedicated machine to run both of these things. They can be on one single machine as well if you want to like have a setup like that. One other interesting thing, I think, which Omar also mentioned before about the licensing. So like we license based on concurrent device. So and it's not tied to a MAC address of the device. So in a scenario, if you have like 100 concurrent users, so you'll only need 100 licenses. Okay, you don't need, even if the number of employees are more, but at the time only 100 devices will be used, you only need 100 licenses. So as soon as you turn on the device, the device fetches the license, a single license from the license server, and as soon as the device shuts down or turns off, it releases that license, and that license can be, let's say, reused by any other device that comes on.
Yeah, so it's not tied to any MAC address or anything like that. You can have 1,000 repurposed laptops, but only 100 in use at a time. It's no issues. Also with the USB scenarios, you can have your users create as many, keep one USB at the beach house and keep one USB at their normal house. It just it's a nice scenario, right, Prerak?
Yeah, exactly. Agree, definitely. And yes, so lastly we have the gateway. So gateway is mainly responsible for managing the devices that are running outside the enterprise network. So for example, the users that are working remotely or from their homes. So the administrators can still manage and configure those devices like in the same way that they are managing or configuring the in-house devices. And also ZeeConf Gateway is it's a virtual appliance, so it can be installed on any hypervisor that you have, or if you want to use it on cloud. So at this moment, we support Azure. So if you want to set it up on Azure, you could do that. And in the near future, we'll be supporting other public cloud networks as well, such as AWS or GCP. So yeah, so that's the overall architecture of the solution. It might look like there are a lot of components, but like just to test the solution, there's not a lot of things that you need. So just for testing, you only need a Windows management tool. So these are only two things that you need for testing the event. The rest of the things are needed, let's say when you are going to production or you have a full-fledged environment where you have devices that are running that also and a dedicated license server also and things like that. So yeah. Okay, so now let's dive into the demo, I think. So this is the part that everyone has been looking forward to. So just give me a moment, I'll pull up my client. Yes. Okay. So this is the Windows client, okay, that is on the architecture. And the first thing that you notice in the client is the tree structure that you see on the left-hand side. Okay, so this is basically structured to, let's say, segregate your devices. So you would have like multiple groups, like top level groups, then you could have sub level groups as well, and like you could go as many groups as you want. Okay, so there's no limit to that. And this is very helpful in order to, like I said before, to segregate your devices, and especially if you are a big company or if you have multiple departments which are using devices, so you could separate those devices based on the location or the department. Also, if you are a service provider, MSP, then you could separate the devices based on your clients as well. So like tool is multi-tenant friendly. So for an MSP, it's a very good option, and they have the ability to manage all the clients from one single point. They don't need separate installations for each and every client.
Hey,
Apart
Prerak,
from the multi-tenancy, yep.
sorry to stop you 1 second. There's a little bit of latency. I don't know if it's on my side only, but maybe if you remove your video, because the sound is coming up a little bit blurry.
Yep, just give me a moment. Okay, it's on now. Before.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Sorry. Yes. So yeah. So like I was saying, apart from the multi-tenancy capability, this device also works on role-based access control model. So like imagine a scenario that you are an MSP and you have like multiple clients, and you have, let's say, a team of administrators that is handling the devices of these clients. So what this tool allows you to do is, like, you could assign certain devices to certain administrators. So let's say you assign client A and client B to administrator 1, and client C and client D to administrator 2. Now you could configure certain groups in this tool, and what will happen is that administrator 1 will only see the devices of client A and client B. So he will not have access to the devices of other clients on which he doesn't has any rights. So this is quite useful in if you want to, let's say, separate the administration or provide access to only certain devices to certain administrators. So this is quite helpful in that sense. Now, one other interesting thing that we provide is a concept called zero-touch deployment. So the idea is basically to have a pipeline in such a way that there's very less things that a user or an administrator has to do when, let's say, we are deploying some new devices. So I'll walk you through the process of how we do that. So for a group over here, so not over here. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so for a group, what you could see is over here, we could provide an IP range. Okay, so let's say if you provide one subnet over here, so what will happen is, like, when a new device is turned on, it will fetch its IP address from the network, and as soon as it gets the IP address, it will automatically go into the good group. So, and how it does is based on this IP range. So if you have provided an IP range for a group, if that device falls in that group, it will automatically come inside this group. Now the device is inside the group, and the other interesting, the important feature that we have is templates. Okay, so So templates are very similar to GPOs that we have in Windows, okay? And like this template is very granular, okay? You have like access to all the different configurations that you will see in the different tabs. So for example, you have your some basic parameters over here, such as your date or your keyboard language or screen or time zone. And we also have some dedicated configuration for Citrix, like for example, your store URL or logo or things like that. So the main use of this templates is like you could create a template with certain configurations that you want. And once you have created this template, you could assign this template to a group. Okay. So let's say we assign a template to the group, Texas over here. Now, when a new device is turned on, it will come into the group based on the IP range, like I mentioned before. And it will also pick the templates that are assigned to that group. So as soon as a device comes in that group, it will get that template, it will apply that configuration on itself, and the device is almost ready to use. So if we like analyze the whole process, the only thing that the administrator had to do was to create groups with good IP ranges, and also create the template with all the required configurations that they want. So once that is done, and that's nothing else that's left for the administrator or the user. The user only has to turn on the device, plug it into the network, and the rest of the things will be taken care of by the software itself. So this is something which is very useful when you are, let's say, deploying thousands of devices, or also in the scenario if you have to, let's say, if you want to update the configuration of multiple devices. And like I said, like these templates are very granular, so you have access to like very basic configurations or very minute configurations as well. Now, like in order to create a template, we have to like, let's configure one device using different tabs. Okay, so we'll quickly go through the tabs for one single device, okay, and what different configurations that can be configured over here. So over here, so in general, we have some very basic parameters such as the host name, the domain, or NTP servers. But then the most important part over here is the startup URL that you see on the bottom. Our operating system comes with two browsers that are inbuilt, so, and those are Chrome and Firefox. And this is the URL that will be used by those two browsers. So this is the startup URL for those two browsers. Now, why this is very useful is over here. So like our device can run in two modes. So one is the zero client mode or a regular thin client mode. So if you're running the device in a zero client mode and you have, let's say you have selected Chrome over here. So what will happen is when the user turns on the device, the operating system will launch Chrome in a kiosk mode. So the user has access to the local OS, and it will also go to the URL. So let's say you have defined your startup URL as the URL of your storefront or your CITRIX Workspace on the cloud. So as soon as the user turns on the device, he'll directly see his login page. He'll never see the local operating system, and he'll never have a chance to even interact with it or do some or modify some configurations over there. And so for from the user's point of view, it is very how could I say, it's very seamless for him. So he just enters his credentials and he's directly into his virtual workspace. Now, if you don't want to have this zero client mode, so you could also provide a standard desktop or a thin client mode to the users. So over here, you could configure your start menu items, your desktop items, and design the desktop for the user. And it's quite simple. It's just dragging and dropping the application from left to right. And yeah, it's quite easy and intuitive. There are many of our customers who use our devices in zero client mode. So we have if I remember correctly, we have a library that are showcasing their collection, like what different books they have and like in which different parts of the library that they are, in which different aisles they are there. So they are using the devices in zero client mode, and they just have a web application running on the device. Moving forward, we have a dedicated tab for CITRIX. Okay, so and you can configure a lot of different things related to the CITRIX. So it can be like you would configure or like route your drives, okay, from the local OS to the remote environment, and also maintain the permissions. You could also like allow or deny certain USB ports, okay, based on your requirements. We also have different parameters for the ICA client, okay. So there are all the different parameters that are supported by the ICA client. There are a lot of parameters which are not available in the UI and that can be configured from command line only. So we have added those as well over here. And yes, and in the bottom you have some things that you could activate or deactivate. So it can be the certain optimization packs, for example, for HDX or Teams or things like that. Other interesting thing over here is the last one that you see, the log of action. So what this allows you to do is, like, if let's say if I have configured power off over here, so as soon as the user logs off from his or her Citrix session, the device will turn off automatically, okay. And when the next user comes on, he'll turn on the device, and if it's in a zero client mode, he'll directly again see his, let's say, the login page for the Citrix account. So yeah, so these are certain different parameters that we have for Citrix, and we also cover other platforms as well, such as VMware or RTP or Nutanix. So we have dedicated tabs for those as well.
So Prerak, how would you go about updating, for instance, the CITRIX Workspace app on those machines? Is that something that can be done through this sort of interface?
Yeah, definitely. So let's say, so we have a dedicated, we have the CITRIX Workspace client as part of the OS. So over here, so if you are using Citrix Cloud, so then in that scenario, you just have to provide the startup URL, okay, and you could configure to launch a browser, okay. Or if you want to use the Citrix Workspace app, then what you could do is over here you could provide the URL of your store. Okay, so it can be your Citrix Cloud store or even your storefront and an on-premise storefront. So as soon as you
allow you to update it as well, yeah, would you be able to put the latest version on? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes. Okay. So yes. So moving forward, so in the security tab, so there are certain configurations related to security, and we try to focus a lot on this in order to have a solution that is, let's say, secure. So over here, you could, like, let's say if you have just deployed a new application and you also want to add the certificate to access that application on the device. So you could push your root certificates or your intermediate certificates over here on the device. Okay. We have some well-known root certificates already pre-installed, but if you have your own or your self-send certificates, you could push that as well. Our operating system also has Java installed. So if you have some old application that are running on Java, so they can also run without any issues. And along with the programming part, we also have a key store. So if the application wants to store and access some data securely, they could use that as well. Over here, ZeeKey is one of our other products that Omar mentioned during his presentation. So you could have some certain configurations for ZeeKey also over here. One interesting use case for ZeeKey is the remote desktoping feature, or not remote, sorry, it's the hot desking feature that we have. So let's say you're working in a hospital, and in hospitals, you mainly, like, the nurses have to move from one desk from one patient to other patients, and they have their dedicated terminals over there. So using ZeeKey, what you would do is, like, as soon as a nurse puts in the ZeeKey, it will ask for a PIN, okay, to unlock the secure USB. And as soon as they provide the PIN, it will automatically launch their, let's say, Citrix URL, Citrix Workspace URL, and it will autofill the credentials, and the user will be inside his Citrix session. Now, as soon as they plug out the key, they are instantly disconnected. Okay, so this is something that we can configure over here, like on remove part. So as soon as they remove the key, they are instantly disconnected from the session. They move on to another terminal. They put in the key, put in the PIN, and they are logged in again, and they resume from where they left on the previous terminal. So this is quite helpful in hospitals and also in the retail sector, where there are cashiers who are moving from their one point of sale to another point of sale. And it allows them to, like, save some time on, like, going to the URL, typing the credentials and things like that.
Yeah, just a note on ZeeKey is that it works with our operating system, but it can also work if you're accessing from a Windows endpoint. So you are able to use ZeeKey independently of our endpoint solution.
Yeah. And lastly, for security reasons, if you require to have, let's say, a VPN, okay, so we have a VPN inbuilt in our OS as well, so you could configure even configure your different parameters for your VPN client and over here, and then the user would be able to connect through that as well. And also in the bottom, we have the configuration for ZeeConf Gateway. So once again, like Gateway, if you have some users that are using the devices from the home or outside the company network, you could manage those devices as well. They will appear in the same tree as we see on the left. So for the administrator, it's very seamless. Okay, he could manage those devices also in the similar fashion.
So we've got a number of questions about how does the client licensing process work for your software? Is that something you can elaborate on?
Yes, sure. So like so basically there's no dedicated license for the client or the management tool that we have. So the licenses we license mainly for the device that's being used, and it's also a concurrent based license model. So we're not again tied to any MAC address of the endpoint device. So what happens is, like, when a device turns on, okay, it connects to the ZeeConf server part, ZeeConf server, that I showed in the architecture, and then server will fetch one license from the license server, and if he's able to fetch the license, he'll allow the administrator to manage those or allow the user to use that device. And now when the user turns off the device, the device will release that license, and that license goes back to the license server. So again, the same license can be used when a device that comes in. So it works in short, it works in this way.
So any device running the OS gets the management tool with it. So the management tool comes with the solution. It's not something that you have to opt for separately. It's all everything is included in the solution. So if you buy, for example, ZeeTransformer to convert your devices, it's by the concurrent device that you purchase. And if you go for the physical device, then every physical device will get a license. And actually, when you buy a physical device, it does come with 3 years of warranty, 3 years of support. Everything for 3 years. After the 4th year, you have to just update your maintenance.
Okay, cool. The other sort of major subject that we've got floating about question-wise, I mean, we've got Kevin who's asked quite early on, actually saying that they currently use a Linux-based endpoint OS, and they've had a lot of issues with the CITRIX Workspace app, and particularly around Teams optimized video calls. He says the CITRIX app for Linux dropped echo cancellation and recommended that they use headsets. And have you got any way to mitigate that?
So maybe for this one we could bring in Sabir for the question. Sabir, are you there?
Yes. Hi everyone. Excuse me, Justin. Can you say it again? I mean, I heard about some headsets issues.
Yeah, they're talking about issues with the CITRIX Workspace app for Linux, and particularly with Teams video calls, with Teams optimization. And they're saying that the CITRIX Workspace app for Linux has dropped echo cancellation and started recommending using a headset. Can you do it without having to use a headset? I guess is the sort of question.
I think that's a question. I think I read that somewhere on internet. What I can say is today we have I think thousands of users today are who are working from home from several years now, and with headsets, and until now, and with the latest workspace with Teams optimization and even with Skype optimization, we really haven't got issues with this noise cancellation and headphone issues. We have validated a lot of headsets from Jabra, Logitech. Which one I don't know which one I have. So we really haven't found any issues today. There were some issues, but when we asked these people to change their headsets to something we have already validated, that we didn't have any issue yet.
And just around sort of, I mean, when we talk about optimization, there's a lot of offloading goes on, not just for the likes of Teams, right, but for things like browser content redirection. Can these sort of like thin client or zero client support all of that native redirection?
Yes. This is what I mean when I talk about Teams optimization. Okay, it's to go to your local internet breakout for all the streams, video, audio streams, go from this local internet breakout instead of coming through HDX protocol.
Okay, cool.
And definitely, I mean, if that's a pestering problem, we could look at it. You know, you can test out the solution, and if you need our assistance, we can certainly look at it more specifically if it's still you know, still
There's
happening.
actually just a follow-up question just popped in there about the CITRIX Workspace app versions. They're saying, how long does it take for the release of a new CITRIX Workspace app version to get it into your OS? Is that something that you can like sort of provision yourself, or is it something, is there some sort of validation done on your end or anything like that?
Yeah, we're usually very quick. We're usually very quick. The last one, I think we had it the next day. We do our due diligence because sometimes, you know, there are issues. And it's just, it doesn't make sense to go immediately on it. So if we test it, everything works, we release quite quickly. And that goes for CITRIX, VMware, Nutanix, RDS. You know, we try to keep things updated quickly.
Cool. Just out of interest, actually, this is not a question that's been asked. I was just wondering, what is the Nutanix integration that you do? Because I can see it there on the screen and it looks interesting.
Yeah, that's actually that's a pretty recent integration that we've done. So we've added the Linux client for Nutanix on our operating system. Prerak, I don't know if there's anything much you want to say about Nutanix.
For Nutanix, yeah, I mean, it's like we have added it very recently. So for now, we only have the configuration to add the storage URL, but I think like in the upcoming versions, we'll add some more controls for the Nutanix as well.
Yeah,
different options that the client provides.
What I can say is today, I think this is the first version of the Nutanix Linux client, and I guess because I mean a few weeks ago they were just providing the HTML5 client for Linux, and this is really one of the first versions they provide. So I guess we have nothing to we can configure nothing locally, and I think the next versions which are coming may have some I mean ability to configure this client locally. But today there's really nothing we can do on the local client.
Yeah.
Is that just trying to link up with the likes of Frame and things like that? Is it, or is it more generic Nutanix functionality?
No, it's Nutanix Frame. It's Frame, yeah.
Right.
This is specifically for Frame, yeah. This is specifically for Frame, and like you know, you see here, like on the you know, ICA USB. Prerak, if you can click on Add there, you see like we've added a ton of stuff there. I'm sorry, that's not the one I meant.
Oh, sorry, which one?
Yeah, I meant the yeah.
This one?
Yeah, the client parameters. So that's you know, like with CITRIX, we've done everything. We've even GUI'd things that were, you know, not possible if you're just using native CITRIX. So that's the intention that we have with Frame, with any other I guess solution. You know, to be able to
have you got any native Azure Virtual Desktop integration, or is that roadmapped at all?
That is roadmapped. Today we support it on HTML5. We are in close talks with Microsoft, you know, and we should be adding something for Linux soon. They have, you know, we don't have an exact time frame, but we're hoping, you know, sometime before the end of the year to have something.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft hasn't worked on the Linux client yet. There are some, let's say, the main thing, what they say is they just use HTML5 or revamp a browser and make it a binary file that will display the desktop in HTML file. But today they have not released a client as a real client for Linux operating system. And this is what Omar said. I mean, we are working with them closely, hopefully to get something, pre-released next month and released by the end of the year with Microsoft Linux clients for AVD. Yes.
Cool.
Yes, so I think that's only one part remaining for the demo. So we'll quickly go through that. So this the web-based management console that we have. Okay, so this is the one that is, so like we have a dashboard, okay, which gives you some idea about how many devices are running right now, like which type of devices are running. So for example, over here, like right now we have 6 devices that are currently active from the company, but there are no devices that are connected from outside. Okay, so the WAN. And apart from that, we have certain, like we had some old models of the devices, okay, but which we don't have anymore. But the latest model that we have is this one, the 6002. So this is the physical device that we have, okay. Then over here, like these 9000 ones are the devices that are running our OS on the USB. They are not fully converted yet, but they are running the OS on the USB and they are booted from the USB. And at the bottom, 9002 are the devices that are fully converted. Okay, so we have put our operating system, that is ZeeOS, on the hard drive of the device. They are now fully converted to ZeeOS. Over here, so this is again the same tree, okay, the same tree structure that we saw before in the Windows tool. Oops, sorry. Okay, but over here you get some more details about the device. So if I just click on one device, I get some very basic details about the device, such as name or the IP address or the serial number or the MAC address or things like that. Apart from that, you could also do certain actions on those. So on the buttons that you see on the top right over here, so like you could shut down the device, reboot it, or also take remote control of the device through your browser. If in case you need, like if there's some issues on the user's end, the administrator could take control and try to find out like what's there that's not working. Over here, again, this is the same list of devices, okay, but in the tabular way. But over here, we all have a lot more information. So if you see over here, so we have this all different columns and different informations related to one single device. So if they have like multiple IP addresses, you get that detail, certain timestamps, like when they were last seen, when they were last updated, when they were last started, and things like that. Okay, so much more details about the device. One important thing, if you are using CITRIX, so we are also able to communicate to CITRIX director. So for example, the username that you see over here in the users column, so this is the name of the user that is currently, or the user that was last connected to his CITRIX session on that device. So we also fetch some of the information from the director and display it over here. So that's something that allows us to get some more details about the users and the device that is being used by that user. And all the different data that we see over here, so all this data is coming from standard REST APIs. So if you have your own inventory tool, you could use that, also consume our APIs and feed that data in that tool and do your, let's say, inventory management from that tool as well. So you're not bound to like use this tool for hardware inventory management, but you could have your own tools and get the data from us without any issues. So yes, so from the demo point of view, this is pretty much that we have right now. But yeah, in case there are certain specific questions related to certain specific functionalities, or if people want to know something more in much details, yeah, feel free to ask. I think we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, I think I got a question from Tom about inventory reporting, and I mean, I was just thinking there myself. What about reporting and monitoring in general? Is there anything, you know, besides inventory reporting? Is there any sort of reporting and monitoring data you can get out? Because obviously you've got a database attached to it, so you must have data that you can query. And additionally, can you send that data somewhere else, like a Splunk instance or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's yeah. Go ahead, Sagar.
Yeah, sure. We can really I mean assign all the data we have to any data lake or any kind of software. You can also plug. We provide all the APIs there to have any inventory software you may have from Eventi, from OCS inventory, or any kind of software that can be connected to the database and pick up all the data there, the data from there. It's really open and accessible, and this is the way we want it to do.
Excellent. And does that, when you set up the database, does that have to be an on-premises kind of database installation, or can you connect it up to cloud services, for instance?
Yeah, sure. I mean, database is just, we can connect to any database wherever it is. I mean, it's it should. I mean, it can be a SQL server, it can be Azure SQL managed service. Anyway, database can be anywhere in the cloud. This server can be in the cloud also. Okay, and yeah, it can be. We can use any kind of authentication there as soon as it's, I mean, LDAP authentication, and be able to connect to a database which is stored in a cloud as a service.
Okay. There's also obviously the big question always about security, and probably this comes a bit from my end as well, because I've been working in finance where security are absolutely crazy. I mean, can you configure when you're converting something into like a thin client or a zero client? Does it? Can you configure any authentication at the point where it boots up, or is all the authentication done when the user actually, you know, is presented with the window where they log on to the portal where they get their applications and desktops from?
Yeah, we choose to not have a local authentication. I mean, this is more because we do not want to store any local configuration. I mean, to the endpoints. So there is no information on where is the I mean, where is the authentication database, which LDAP. It's really a dumb client, and this is, I think, much more secure than having a local authentication, where you have traces of where the user is authenticated himself. So that's why we just, I mean, that's why we choose to not have any authentication locally.
Fair enough, understood. So that obviously means that if you've got the authentication handed off to where the user gets their resources from, obviously all the MFA requirements will be handled there. And obviously my next question was going to be around encryption, but if there isn't any data there, then encryption's kind of a moot point, really, I guess. Cool. I think that covers all the questions and subjects that we've had put in by the attendees. So yeah, I think that's just about right on time.
Yeah, let's just last thing to say. It's very easy for anyone to go to the website, download the software. I mean, push it into a USB. I mean, a key, and just put from any device and test it. It's very easy. In the download, they can have these clients, standalone client that may help them to configure and to manage the device they have. I mean, device which have put it on ZeeOS, and it's very easy. So it takes less than 15-20 minutes to make a test and to have a USB key ready to boot on the device.
Can you actually do that with a virtual machine as well? I'm literally just thinking from my own personal standpoint there, whether I'd test it in the lab or whether I'd have to grab a piece of old hardware.
Yeah, you can do it also on a virtual machine.
Okay, that's good. I will probably give that a try now then. If it runs on a virtual machine, that'll save me having to dig up some old pieces of kit from underneath the desk.
Sure. And yeah, and any information you may need, please join us, and you may download from here any piece of software you want to try. and we'll be glad to help you to make them work properly. I mean, in your environment, and provide you any kind of license you may need.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for hosting us again, Stephanie, all the CUGC team, and thanks James for being our moderator today.